Welcome, visionaries. This is your host, the INFJ Visionary. And the nominal topic for today's broadcast is going to be alienation, but we're going to touch on a bunch of different things that have kind of been swirling around in the background of my mind. Uh, First of all, I don't have my phone with me, but his name's Ren. I forget his last name. He has an INFJ channel. He's a very bright man. He wrote 2 books on INFJs, both of which I recommend. Neither of which name is occurring to me right now, but that's okay. You've seen him. I'm sure you have. Anyway, INFJ Alienation is the topic of his first book. And he put me on to quite a few things. First of all, that feeling of alienation, it has been in the background my whole life, and I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was. It was as simple as when I was younger, like not when you're like elementary school age, but when you're coming into the like the junior high years, right on the cusp of being a young adult. And people would call me weird. And the thing is, like, I wasn't the kind of person that would pick my boogers and eat them in public. I wasn't that weird. But there was something weird about me, something different, something off. Other people picked up on that. Some people, it didn't bother that much. Other people, they wouldn't even think about or consider me other than to think of me as that weird person. I didn't know why I was quote unquote weird. I just knew that I was. I had to own it because obviously people were on a different vibe than me. I just thought, well, this is how life is, and I'll make the best of it. And I recommend you take a stance like that too if you're depressed or whatever. We can get into that in a little bit, but that's alienation at its core. Now, Rand in his book, he goes on to explicate the mechanisms behind this through his analysis of our cognitive functions, and I'm not qualified to do that here. That's not the purpose of this channel, and I'm not going to try and educate myself on the mechanics of psychology or Jungian archetypes or any of that. This channel comes from a place of a INFJ that has lived a life, and I'm old enough now that I can look back and say, wow, that's pretty much a complete life. Now I have just old person life ahead of me. The odd thing is, of course, I don't feel any different than I did when I was 17. I totally identify with that mental outlook on reality. I don't have a calcified or stiff sort of approach to reality. But that's maybe the top topic for another broadcast. Let's get back into this feeling of alienation, which is completely justified if you look at how divorced we actually are from actual reality. And you might have a limited capacity to understand or comprehend this, because if you think about it, everything you know about reality is based on your perception of reality. It's only our intuition combined with the extroverted feeling that gives us a clue that something's up, that other people are vibing on something else. Now, some types which are sort of close to us, like your INTJs and your INFPs, I don't know if I can include the extroverted types in that. Even the INTPs I would include. There's something about the introverted use of intuition, which is definitely not an INTP. I had an INTP. I have several friends that were INTPs over the years, and we can talk about that in another broadcast as well. But there's something about that introverted intuition which sort of secularizes you. It puts you in the ghetto, so to speak. Now, you could make an argument, well, this is not a ghetto, this is a palace. It's a golden palace of insight. That'd be a great name for this video, actually, the Golden Palace of Insight, because I won't be calling out negative perceptions in the titles. I'm going to try and pull people in, and you can just listen to me as a fellow INFJ. I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to disagree. you can just take it in and go, yeah, I can relate, or maybe you garner some insight that helps make that day that much easier. And ultimately, yes, we may be alienated from everyone, but we are picking up on their emotional signals. We are not alone in that sense. Now, I think, referencing the INTPs, I think in a sense they're more lonely than the INFJ. Maybe not, because the loneliness that we experience is that of being almost totally misunderstood by the other types, and possibly even by other INFJs, if you know any. I know one right now, and I'm sure there's a few that people that I've interacted with that were INFJ, and I just wasn't aware of it. But we're lonely. I think I'd rather have this kind of loneliness and sort of have a my finger on the pulse of not just how other individuals are feeling, but I think we can also quite easily apprehend the emotional pulse of the culture that we're in, and even by extension, perhaps other cultures now that we have access to the internet and sort of the ready flow of information. Granted, I think that information is, definitely controlled and manipulated to garner certain responses from people. But, the thing about being an introverted intuitive is that you're probably not going to trust that stuff outright anyway. You're going to question everything. And that's certainly my point of view. Let's see, pulling this back into the alienation thing. So, what can you do about it? That was the whole intention of Ren's second book, and I thought that was a good book. I didn't think it was as good a book as the first, not because it wasn't good. It was very good. I recommend buying both. But the first one really put its finger on the pulse of something we've experienced as just this background sort of feeling that wouldn't necessarily be pulled up into our conscious minds without one of us, like Ren, actually analyzing it and giving it a name, which he called it alienation. In his book, I think he calls it double alienation, because not only are we disconnected from really other people, but we're also essentially disconnected from reality itself, because our extroverted sensing function is so weak. It's kind of like it's definitely operating, it's definitely working, and how it works is to pick up on things in our environment and feed information to the introverted intuition. But when you think about it, that introverted intuition is the kind of filter that doesn't necessarily care about reality, and that's one of the reasons why we're sort of divorced from others. I think, sure, we care about reality. As I pointed out earlier in this broadcast, the only reality we know is the reality that we've apprehended our whole life. As far as we're concerned, there is no other reality. And yet, when you really analyze how people are interacting with each other and the reality that they're perceiving, it's more real to them. And so we are alienated from that reality. We're alienated from them in a sense. Not so alienated, of course. Like I pointed out, we can feel what other people are doing, and you could lose yourself in that. Plenty of INFJs do that. They get dedicated to causes, and losing yourself isn't the worst thing that could happen to you. It's not going to work for me. I'm just not going to be able to settle into the level of belief that would make getting involved with some external sort of organization meaningful to me. That's just not going to work for me. I will be able to pick it apart and dissect it, analyze it, and ultimately will find it lacking, and thus will be left with myself, as we always are, INFJ. That's the consistent thing. So back to the remedy. I think the remedy is the extroverted feeling function, but not, like I said, getting subsumed in some sort of external sort of matrix, either people or organizations, but get involved with putting insights and artwork into the world. And it could just be conversations. I do believe that's good. It's very valuable. Just get out there and talk to the people. It's not hard. All you got to do is say, hey, is that your bike? Or something like that. Anyway, that's it for this broadcast. I hope you got something from it. I'll try and be back in a couple days. Until I do, I want you to keep on keeping on, INFJ.